dropped 3 mid projects. Hey man, it was fun while it lasted. You're washed.
3 albums dropped from Drake at once: ICEMAN, Made to Honor, and Habibi, and the streets were not ready. Certain singles off those projects had rappers on edge because Kendrick Lamar, A$AP Rocky, DJ Khaled, Rick Ross, J. Cole, Nepupure, Alco, and a few others all ended up in the crosshairs. But if one song defines the whole run, it's National Treasures. That record hits different because it gets personal, talking about who stayed loyal, who flipped, and what happens when people start picking sides in somebody else's war. Drake lays it all out, calling out the fake love and the distance that built up in certain relationships, while at the same time giving his flowers to whoever held it down. Rick Ross gets the sharpest end of it though. He moved against Drake when the Kendrick Lamar situation was at its peak, and Drake made sure that did not go unaddressed. Once the album landed, Ross came out swinging with a response.
Bars. Damn. 3 albums are trash albums, 2 years too late. What site is this? Complex? The Glazer University. Oh my God. I've been a long fan. Oh my God. Mr. YouTube. The big 3 anyway. There was too many chefs in the kitchen. Bars. Come on guys, stop. Y'all gotta, let's all leave Lil Man's alone now, man. He did it. He dropped 3 mid projects. Hey man, it was fun while it lasted. You're washed.
What makes it even funnier is that right before the album dropped, Rick Ross was out here trying to patch things up with Drake. He was making moves to get back in good standing, acting like everything was cool. And then the album hit. He heard his name in those records, and the whole friendly act went out the window instantly.
Yo, he's backpedaling, he's this and he's that, and you know, first of all, imagine asking for something for Christmas and you getting it before Christmas. You even make your Christmas list. And I looked at him like, oh, this is good. Ross is kind of like softening up and warming up until I start hearing what he was saying. I don't like what Ross just said, because what Ross is just saying, again, I'm reading between the lines, but it's of entitlement. It's like, yeah, when we was hot, we showed mad love. It's like almost like these guys are trying to punish Drake for like not giving them what they want, whether it's a song or a feature. Like he's some like do boy, like yo, it's time for you to, you know, pay the piper. Like yo, whoa, hold on.
During his interview run ahead of ICEMAN's release, Ross actually softened up noticeably in his second sit down. The way he talked about Drake had shifted. The energy was different, more measured, almost careful. People caught onto it immediately, and a lot of rap fans started putting 2 and 2 together, thinking Ross was laying the groundwork to smooth things over before the project came out.
Ross changed up his tune, in my opinion, because people are hearing rumors going around the industry. Like you hear the Charlemagne's like mentioning it, which is ironic. Everybody who supposedly don't like Drake, they're now starting rumors about Drake's album. Charlemagne and Joe Budden have both said that there is coming at, and it's not like Drake is gonna just put out this like, you know, like J. Cole type album where he don't want no. So what's happening now is everybody's auto-correcting, assuming that there might be on the album about him. So Ross just said, I want to win, but now everybody's on like, all right, you backpedal.
The real question is whether Drake would ever let Ross back in after what he pulled during the Kendrick Lamar situation. Ross straight up told Drake to go on the Maury Povich show to air out how many baby mothers he supposedly has, a direct shot aimed at damaging his relationship with his son. That is not the kind of thing you just move past.
It's heard that new BL Drizzy, the diss, I hold your head up, cut like Rick Ross said, hold it up. Himalaya, Anastasia, Fantasia. Cupcake, man, you looking bad. Looking bad, man. You might as well go on Maury Povich and tell your story. Go to Maury Povich.
DJ Khaled caught heat on the project too, with Drake going at him for flipping to Kendrick's side once the beef got serious. Drake even took a shot in his bars referencing Khaled going halal, using it as a metaphor for how Khaled abandoned the situation entirely, and that line was really about Drake watching people reveal who they actually are when pressure hits. Khaled did not let it slide either. He came out and responded, talking about God being on his side, his enemies having no real power over him, and people hating him simply because he reminds them of who they should be striving to become. Meanwhile, DJ Academics was in Drake's corner during the whole LeBron James situation, standing behind Drake as things escalated on that front too.
Give him belt, Drake! Give him belt! Yes! Yes! Give him belt! Give him belt! Yes! Yes!
After National Treasures dropped, Bozy Badass came out with a reaction that had everybody talking. He said Drake must be out of his mind with this one. He pulled up to a gas station that morning, and the whole place had it blasting, walked into a barbershop and every single chair had it going. And even his people locked up were calling him the second they got phone access just to talk about it. But there is actually more layers to that reaction than what's on the surface. With ICEMAN, Drake was intentional about making music that resonated in the hood specifically, and that decision traces back to something 21 Savage said to him in a real but respectful way, basically pointing out that people in the hood had stopped tuning into Drake's music. That stuck with him, and ICEMAN was the response to that.
If I wasn't a rapper, I don't feel like I still would listen to Drake for real. It's just I'm a rapper, so I understand the work he put in now, how hard he go.
Wait,
like
why
when
though?
you ain't no rapper, all them statistics don't mean shit. A regular street don't give a about how many times you went #1, like how many white people listen to you. They don't even think that the farthest they think is the club. Who's selling this club out? That's who they think is the biggest. Like in Atlanta, it's a lot of who you really can't tell them Future ain't bigger than Drake.
I always say it's cap. Really?
On God, I used to think that.
And look, everything we just broke down only scratches the surface of what this whole situation actually means for Drake and where he stands in the game right now. Because when you zoom out and look at the full picture of what just happened with this triple album drop, the scale of it starts to hit different. This is not a regular music moment. This is not just a rapper releasing a project and waiting for the numbers. What Drake did on May 15th, 2026 is the kind of move that gets studied years from now when people talk about how to reclaim your position in an era where the internet decides your legacy within 72 hours of a drop. Let's start with the raw numbers because they tell a story by themselves. 43 new songs, 149 minutes of brand new material, 3 full-length studio albums hitting every streaming platform at the exact same moment, midnight, no warning, beyond what he teased during a YouTube live stream the night before. The casual fan logged on expecting one project. The dedicated fan was tracking every rumor and thought maybe there would be 2. And then Drake sat there live and announced all 3 were coming at once. The reaction online was immediate and it was loud. Even people who openly said they were not checking for him pulled up first thing in the morning just to see what was there. That is the Drake effect, and it has not gone anywhere. On Spotify alone, he broke the record for the most streamed artist, album, and song in a single day for all of 2026. Think about that. We are talking about one man, one night, setting 3 separate streaming benchmarks simultaneously on the biggest audio platform in the world. Not a feature, not a collab album, his own music, his own night, his record, and that was just day 1. The kind of numbers that come out of a run like that do not just happen because an album is available. They happen because something about the music locked people in and kept them coming back. Casual listeners streamed it out of curiosity and got pulled into full playthroughs. The fans who had been waiting for this since he first started teasing it back in 2025 were already organized and ready to push every project on every platform from the jump. And what makes this hit even harder is what was already happening before May 15th even arrived. Going into the release, Drake already had 9 different albums charting simultaneously on the Billboard 200. 9 projects from every single chapter of his career, from early days when he was still proving himself, all the way through the commercial peak era and beyond, all of them breathing at the same time on the same chart. That alone was a conversation. That alone was proof that his catalog is not just historically significant, it is active. The catalog was basically warming the stage up for what was coming. By the time the new music landed, there was already a foundation of momentum sitting underneath it, waiting to amplify everything. Now, whether any of the 3 new projects debut at #1 on the Billboard 200, that would mark something historic on its own terms. A 15th #1 album would break the outright record for most chart-topping projects among all rappers in history, pushing past a tie that has held for years. But the more interesting possibility is that he could theoretically occupy the top 3 slots on the entire Billboard 200 in the same week. 3 albums debuting at the same time, sitting in first, second, and third place. That has never happened with simultaneously dropping projects from the same artist ever in the history of the chart. Michael Jackson is the only artist who has ever held the top 3 positions at once, and even that was under different circumstances with staggered releases. Drake doing it with 3 albums dropping on the same night would be something that has no comparison and nothing to measure it against. But let's not just talk charts and streams, because the music itself is what actually got people invested in the first place. The way Drake structured these 3 projects was deliberate in a way that a lot of people did not immediately catch. Each album has its own lane. Habibti leans heavy into R&B territory, softer energy, more melodic, built for a different kind of listening. Maid of Honor is the club record, the party album, the soundtrack for wherever people are trying to have a good time. And then there's ICEMAN. ICEMAN is the rap album. ICEMAN is where Drake let it all out. The bars are sharper, the energy is different, the tone is more focused and more ruthless. If the other 2 albums are for different sides of his audience, ICEMAN is for the people who wanted to see what he does when someone backs him into a corner and he decides to fight instead of step back. And that is where the DISSED come in. Going into this release, everyone knew there was a possibility Drake was going to address the people and situations that had been building up around him. There was too much sitting there unresolved, too many moves that had been made against him publicly, too many people who had switched positions when it was convenient for them, too many relationships that cracked under pressure. The question was how far he was willing to go and who specifically was going to catch it. The answer, as it turns out, is that he went far enough to make sure the entire conversation changed. Multiple people found themselves mentioned across the album, and the reactions came in waves throughout the day as people worked through the tracks and started putting the pieces together. Some of those reactions were from people trying to defend themselves, some were from people who knew they were in there but chose to stay quiet, and some were from fans who spent the whole day cross-referencing lyrics with public events trying to figure out who every bar was pointing at. What is fascinating about the way Drake handles the shots on ICEMAN is that they are layered enough to work on multiple levels. On the surface, the disses are direct. He is not hiding behind vague language when he wants to be understood, but there is also enough craft in the construction that the tracks do not feel like rage just thrown onto a beat. They feel controlled, intentional, like someone who has had more than enough time to sit with everything that happened and figure out exactly what they want to say and exactly how they want to say it. The beats were selected to match that energy, and the pacing across the album keeps you engaged because you never quite know when the next piece of information is going to land. The hate side of things reacted about how you would expect. There are people who decided before a single song played that they were going to call it a loss no matter what it sounded like. That crowd was vocal on social media within hours of the drop, posting takes about how he is living in the past, how he should have moved on, how fixating on his grievances is a sign that he never got over things that happened. That narrative was predictable, and it arrived on schedule. What was less predictable was how quickly it got drowned out by the actual volume of people who clearly enjoyed what they were hearing. The streaming numbers alone contradicted the idea that the public had tuned him out. You cannot set Spotify records in a single day on pure nostalgia. The music has to be working. The rollout itself deserves its own conversation. Drake's approach to building anticipation for ICEMAN was something the industry had genuinely not seen before in terms of execution. He started teasing the project through a series of YouTube live streams that he called ICEMAN episodes, each one built on the previous, introducing new music and gradually pulling the audience deeper into what was coming. But the most memorable moment of the whole campaign happened in downtown Toronto when an enormous installation made entirely of ice blocks appeared in the city. Frozen into the structure was a bag containing the release date for the album. A streamer named Kishka found it, retrieved it, and opened it up on camera to reveal the May 15th date, and Drake's team rewarded him with $50,000 on the spot for the discovery. It became a viral moment that generated massive press and fan engagement at exactly the right time. Drake also turned his courtside seats at Toronto Raptors games into frozen icicles as part of the same campaign, keeping the branding consistent and creative throughout the build-up. Every piece of marketing served the bigger picture. And then comes the livestream night itself, which flipped the script one final time before the music even hit. Going into the 4th ICEMAN episode, fans had come around to the idea that maybe 2 albums were coming. The rumor mill had been swirling, but Drake waited until the very end of the stream to reveal that it was actually 3 projects dropping at once. The reaction from people watching live, including well-known media figures who had been tuned in all night, was genuine shock, not performed excitement, not calculated hype. Actual disbelief that someone pulled off that kind of pump fake at that scale. He announced it by saying all 3 albums were coming at midnight from The Biggest Sound. 3 Instagram posts went up, one for each project with the cover art, and then midnight hit and all 43 tracks were sitting on every streaming service waiting to be played. There's also something worth noting about what this moment represents in the larger context of Drake's career. Everything leading up to this release had been turbulent in ways that go beyond just music. There were lawsuits. There were legal disputes with his own label. There was a beef that dominated an entire year of hip-hop conversation and ended in a way that the public largely scored against him. His reputation in certain circles took damage. People who had never questioned him before started distancing themselves. The narrative being written about him by sections of the media and the internet was not flattering. He went through all of that, kept building, kept working, and came out on the other side with 3 albums, 43 songs, and a Spotify record. Whatever your opinion is on the individual situations that brought him to this point, the response itself is undeniable. There are also people asking deeper questions about what the triple album strategy means beyond just numbers and impact. Some listeners noticed lyrics across the projects that appear to hint at wanting to be free from his current label arrangement, language about independence and people needing to let him go. All 3 albums are listed as being released through Republic Records under license from OVO Sound. Combined with the ongoing legal tension between Drake and Universal Music Group, the parent company of Republic, some people believe the volume of music released at once could be a calculated way to fulfill contractual obligations and position himself to operate independently moving forward. If that reading is accurate, then this entire rollout is not just a comeback. It is a strategic exit wrapped inside a cultural event. Every stream, every album unit, every chart position becomes part of a larger business maneuver happening in plain sight while most people are just focused on the bars. The things that make this moment different from anything Drake has done before are actually the things that make it hard to fully process in real time. It is too large. There is too much material to absorb in a single sitting, and 3 albums with distinct sounds means different parts of his audience are going to land on different projects and have completely different experiences. The person who got pulled in by the R&B side of Habibti and the person who went straight to ICEMAN for the bars are technically both streaming the same release event, but having almost nothing in common in terms of what they encountered first. That breadth is either a sign of an artist so confident in his range that he will not limit himself to a single lane, or it is a statement that he has no interest in being boxed in by what people expect from him at this point in his career. Either way, the conversation it has opened up is not going anywhere anytime soon. The music is out, the reactions are running, the numbers are climbing, and Drake is standing at the center of all of it, exactly where he has always seemed to end up, no matter how many times people have tried to write the ending of his story for him. Drake dropped the news that he's got 3 albums locked and loaded, ICEMAN, Habibti, and Maid of Honor, and the whole industry basically stopped what it was doing. Reactions started pouring in from all directions, but the one that had everybody talking came from DJ Academics, a man who has made it his personal mission to be Drake's #1 supporter and friend for many years.
3 albums dropping at midnight. Oh my god, wait. Is it 3 albums?
Initially, ICEMAN was the only project anybody knew about. That was that was the plan. So when Habibti and Maid of Honor got thrown into the mix out of nowhere, social media absolutely lost it. Meanwhile, over in Toronto, tens of thousands of people had flooded the streets and gathered outside the CN Tower, where Drake had set up a massive projector that coated the entire structure in a glowing ice effect. Nobody knew exactly what was coming, but as midnight crept closer, the anticipation in that crowd was through the roof.
Producer radio is right over here. Hey, where's Jason? Sorry. No, I'm gonna get close. It's so funny. Where's JJ?
On top of all that, ICEMAN even managed to pull in Ebro Darden, who was genuinely hyped about the whole thing, which is saying something considering where he and Drake have stood in the past.
Drake Day, ICEMAN, baby. Tune into the Ebro show right now. All Drake, hammers, and I'm gonna start to. You know we gotta go timestamp. We seeing the 1 a.m. in Albany moving.
Have your fader hot. 1 minute, 30 seconds.
Going live, baby. You heard the man.
The production behind ICEMAN alone was on a scale most people hadn't seen before, but then everything shifted an hour before the 3 albums actually hit. Drake dropped Iceman episode 4 and it got real personal fast. He opened up about his father fighting cancer right now and debuted a brand new record where he rapped about his dad going through it and the two of them facing it together stage by stage. It became clear pretty quickly that these 3 albums weren't just a musical flex. This was Drake pouring everything out for his family during one of the hardest moments of his life. So naturally, a lot of people raised an eyebrow when Rick Ross decided that was the moment to start talking about the project in interviews, which came across to many like he was using Drake's name to keep himself relevant. DJ Academics caught wind of it and didn't hold back, calling out Ross for doing what he apparently always does, waiting for Drake to make a move just to attach himself to the moment.
Yo, he's backpedaling, he's this and that, and you know, first of all, imagine asking for something for Christmas and you getting it before Christmas, you even make your Christmas list. And I looked at him like, oh, this is good. Ross is kind of like softening up and warming up until I start hearing what he was saying. I don't like what Ross just said, because what Ross is just saying, again, I'm reading between the lines, but it's of entitlement. It's like, yeah, when we was hot, we showed mad love. It's like almost like these guys are trying to punish Drake for like not giving them what they want, whether it's a song or a feature. Like he's some like do boy, like yo, it's time for you to, you know, pay the piper. Like, yo, you whoa, hold.
And this isn't anything new with Ross. This is a pattern. The entire time Drake was out here promoting Iceman, Rick Ross was making the rounds, doing interview after interview, constantly bringing Drake's name up, clearly trying to ride the wave of whatever was going viral at the time. What makes it even more transparent is the history behind it. During the Drake and Kendrick Lamar situation, Ross was firmly on Kendrick's side, taking shots at Drake repeatedly. Now all of a sudden he wants back in, seemingly trying to patch things up and get back in Drake's good graces. The problem is Drake has made it pretty obvious he's not interested, continuously leaving Ross on red and refusing to acknowledge him no matter how many times he reaches out.
Ross changed up his tune, in my opinion, because people are hearing rumors going around the industry. Like, you hear the Charlemagne's like mentioning it, which is ironic. Everybody who supposedly don't like Drake, they're now starting rumors about Drake's album. Charlemagne and Joe Budden have both said that there is coming at, and it's not like Drake is gonna just put out this like, you know, like J. Cole type album where he don't want no. So what's happening now is everybody's auto-correcting, assuming that there might be on the album about him. So Ross just said, I want to win, but now everybody's on like, all right, you backpedal.
Ross wasn't the only one with something to say, while Drake was in his promotional bag though. Charlemagne the God also chimed in after a track from the new album surfaced early, and he wasn't exactly impressed, calling Drake out for coming across like someone who still couldn't let things go. Charlemagne went as far as saying he hoped the rest of Iceman wasn't heading in that direction, because if it was, the name Iceman was starting to make sense for a different reason. Like Drake was someone who simply couldn't move forward. And speaking of people Drake clearly hadn't forgotten about, LeBron James also found himself on the receiving end of a diss, because just like Ross, LeBron had sided with Kendrick when things were heated between the two, and apparently Drake had no intention of letting that slide either.
Give him belt, Drake! Give him belt! Yes! Give him belt! Give him belt! Yes!
Right before everything dropped though, DJ Academics decided to put his money where his mouth was. $1,000 saying Lil Baby's name would be nowhere to be found on Iceman. No feature, no nothing.
I already put in no to Baby. Nope. Chat, can't even lie to you. I don't care what. Listen, if I hear it, yo, I put my money where my mouth is, chat. Pause. If I hear this mush mouth on this album, I might have to take 10. So I already like. Listen, I had like $1,000 in it.
Now with all 3 albums finally out in the world, it's worth circling back to everyone who came for Drake during the Kendrick Lamar situation, because Drake made sure none of them got a pass. He went after several of those people directly throughout the projects, and one of the moments that got people talking was when Drake took a shot at Rick Ross, suggesting Ross needed to take a trip to Maury Povich. Ross of course had plenty to say about that.
It's heard that new BL Drizzy, the diss, I hold your head up, cut like Rick Ross said, hold it up. Himalaya, Anastasia, Fantasia. Cupcake, man, you looking bad. Looking bad, man. You might as well go on Maury Povich and tell your story. Go to Maury Povich.
Let's talk about what this triple drop actually means on a financial level, because 3 albums in one night is not just a creative flex. That's a money move on a scale that the music industry genuinely hasn't seen before. And the numbers that are already coming in are making people rethink what's actually possible in this era of streaming. The sheer volume of content he pushed through the gates on May 15th is the kind of thing that restructures how an artist's entire financial picture looks. And when you zoom out and actually look at where things were heading already, before a single note of ICEMAN, Habibti, or Maid of Honor even played, the setup was already ridiculous. Before the triple drop even happened, every single one of his studio albums was actively charting on the Billboard 200 at the same time. Think about that for a second. Not 1 or 2 projects holding on, all of them simultaneously breathing and moving on the charts. That doesn't happen. That's the kind of catalog longevity that most artists spend entire careers dreaming about and never reaching. And that was the baseline. That was the floor he was operating from before 3 brand new bodies of work entered the equation all at once. So when ICEMAN, Habibti, and Maid of Honor hit streaming platforms at midnight on May 15th, they weren't landing in a vacuum. They were landing on top of an already active foundation that was already generating revenue, already driving playlist additions, already pulling people into the catalog, but from every angle imaginable. Now stack 3 new albums on top of that, and what you have is something the streaming era has genuinely never processed before. And according to Billboard, the release immediately set a 2026 Spotify record for most streamed artist, album, and song in a single day. One day. Not a week, not a month. One single calendar day across one platform alone broke records that hadn't been touched all year. And that's before you factor in Apple Music, YouTube, Tidal, Amazon Music, and every other service these albums simultaneously launched on. The cumulative stream count across all 3 projects from that first day alone is the kind of number that typically takes an average major artist an entire album cycle to accumulate. He did it in one rotation of the earth. What makes the streaming story here even more interesting is how the 3 projects each found their own lane within the platform algorithms rather than cannibalizing each other. That was the big fear going into this, that listeners would be overwhelmed, that the audience would fracture across 3 projects and none of them would hit as hard as one focused release would have. Instead, what happened was the opposite. ICEMAN, carrying 18 tracks and that hard-edged production energy that defined the whole rollout from episode 1 onwards, captured the listeners who wanted the full-scale statement. It was the flagship, the one that had been teased across 4 different episodes in multiple countries, the one with the CN Tower light show and the ice sculpture, and that entire mythology built around it since July 2025. That audience showed up fully and they showed up hungry. But then Habibti, 11 tracks, a 36-minute runtime that felt almost lean by comparison, snuck in and started doing something different. The title itself, an Arabic term of endearment roughly meaning my darling or my love, signaled immediately that this wasn't going to be the same sonic territory as ICEMAN. It was softer in some ways, more personal in others, and the audience that gravitates toward his melodic and reflective side latched onto it almost immediately. Within minutes of it hitting streaming platforms, according to reports from Hip Hop Vibe, social media timelines were flooded with reactions, lyrics, screenshots, and debates about where it ranked among his recent work. That kind of immediate organic response to people pulling lines and sending them to each other before the album had even finished its first playthrough for most listeners is what streaming platforms dream about when they talk about engagement metrics. It's not passive listening, it's active, repeated social listening, and that behavior drives the algorithm placement that keeps a project relevant for weeks and months beyond its release date rather than just a few days. Maid of Honor brought the third and arguably most emotionally layered dimension to the trilogy. At 14 tracks, it sits between the other 2 in terms of length, but the weight of it felt heavier than either of the others to a lot of listeners who sat in it. The family tribute element that ran through that project gave it a different texture. It was the one that people came back to when they wanted something that felt real and grounded rather than cinematic or celebratory. Hypebeast described it as rounding out the triple drop with a project that featured a family tribute at its core, and that framing resonated across music coverage everywhere. The projects functioned together almost like a trilogy with distinct tones, aggressive and declarative, vulnerable and personal, and emotionally deep, and that tonal variety is what kept listeners rotating through all three rather than settling into just one and ignoring the others. From a pure chart performance standpoint, the opportunity sitting in front of this triple drop is genuinely historic. Billboard noted shortly after the albums dropped that he had the potential to occupy the top 3 positions on the Billboard 200 simultaneously, an achievement that has only ever been done once in chart history by a single artist and never with 3 debut releases happening at the same time. That's a first that nobody in the history of recorded music has ever managed. Not in the physical sales era, not in the digital downloads era, not in the streaming era. If the numbers come through the way the first day data suggests they should, it would be a chart milestone that gets referenced every time someone tries to argue about who the biggest album artist of this generation actually is. The receipts would literally be the chart itself. And then there's the record 15 #1 albums on the Billboard 200 milestone sitting directly in front of him if any of the 3 projects hit the top spot, which would break the record among rappers that has been held since before Drake was even fully established as a mainstream force. 15 #1s would separate him from every rapper that ever stepped in a booth in terms of chart dominance. And the fact that this moment is happening with 3 albums dropping simultaneously rather than one carefully spaced out release makes the accumulation of that milestone even more staggering. It's not grinding out chart placements one by one over decades. It's 3 potential chart entries in a single week. Now let's get into the money piece because that's where this story gets genuinely wild. Going into 2026, his net worth was already being tracked by financial publications at somewhere between $300 million and $400 million, depending on which assessment you trust and how they're valuing his various assets and income streams. His It's All a Blur tour alone grossed over $320 million, which makes it one of the highest grossing hip-hop tours in the entire history of the format. His Universal Music Group deal signed back in 2022 covered recorded music, publishing, film, television, and brands, and came in at an estimated $360 to $400 million total, one of the most significant music contracts ever reported. His real estate holdings span a Toronto estate valued over $100 million, a Beverly Hills property that was previously listed at nearly $88 million, and additional holdings on top of that. His OVO brand, October's very own, generates income across fashion, music, festivals, and lifestyle products, and has been a functioning multi-revenue lifestyle empire for over a decade now. Stacking all of that up before the triple drop, you're already looking at a financial profile that places him among the most well-capitalized artists in the music industry anywhere on the planet. The billionaire conversation has been hovering in the background for a while now. Fans and industry analysts both have been tracking the trajectory and noting that the distance between where he sits and 10 figures is not as vast as people sometimes assume. What a moment like this does to that trajectory is significant. 3 albums generating simultaneous streaming revenue across every major platform, 3 albums driving merchandise demand, 3 albums anchoring what is likely going to be a major touring cycle. The Freeze the World tour has been teased consistently throughout the ICEMAN rollout, and once those dates get confirmed and tickets go on sale, that revenue layer stacks on top of everything the albums themselves are generating. The streaming royalties alone from 3 simultaneous new projects performing at this level are not money you can easily calculate casually, but the structure of how streaming revenue compounds over time matters here. These aren't albums that are going to peak hard and disappear, given the engagement patterns already visible from day one. The social sharing, the repeat listening, the organic spread across different listener communities, ICEMAN, Habibti, and Maid of Honor are all showing the hallmarks of projects that maintain meaningful streaming activity for an extended period. That extended tail is where the real money lives. The first week numbers are what get published and celebrated, but the 12 months of consistent playlist placement, editorial support, and fan activity that follow a successful release like this is what actually reshapes an artist's annual income over time. Think about what the catalog was doing before the drop. Every single album charting, generating streaming income from listeners who were cycling back through old projects in anticipation of new music. That behavior doesn't stop after the new projects drop. If anything, New music creates a funnel effect where listeners who discover the new work go backwards through the catalog, which drives up streams on projects from years ago that have already paid back their advances and are now generating cleaner royalty returns. So the financial impact of a triple drop isn't just the revenue from 3 new albums, it's the amplification it creates across the entire existing catalog, which in his case is one of the most extensive and commercially proven bodies of work in the modern era of hip-hop. The cultural footprint of what just happened here also carries financial weight that doesn't always get counted in the net worth estimates but absolutely affects how the industry values his name in commercial spaces. The ICEMAN rollout, from episode 1 with the branded truck driving through Toronto all the way through the CN Tower light show and the ice sculpture that Toronto police eventually had to shut down after fans started attacking it with pickaxes and setting it on fire, generated an amount of earned media coverage that major corporations spend hundreds of millions of dollars trying to manufacture around their own product launches. He created it organically around his own music, which means the brand equity all flows back to him and the OVO infrastructure around him. That kind of marketing genius compounds. It makes every future announcement, every future project, every future partnership more valuable because the expectation level is now cemented at this scale. The Habibti album specifically speaks to something happening in his global audience reach that has financial implications beyond what the domestic streaming numbers alone would suggest. Arabic culture and the Middle Eastern diaspora represent some of the fastest growing streaming markets in the world right now, and the choice to give an album a title that's rooted in that cultural space, an Arabic term of endearment, wasn't accidental. It was acknowledged by fans and commentators internationally as a gesture of connection, and it landed. The album hit charts in regions that aren't always penetrated by North American hip-hop at this level, and that cross-cultural commercial reach is exactly the kind of thing that makes a touring proposition more lucrative when dates start getting announced for regions beyond North America and the UK and Europe. And Maid of Honor, with its Central C feature and the broader British music DNA embedded in its rollout. Episode 2 was shot entirely in Manchester, featuring Drake being chased through the city in a cinematic piece, has its own lane in the UK market that was already well established. The UK charts have historically been a consistent revenue source for him going back years, and launching a full album that has specific energy and collaborations connecting to that market guarantees that the sales and streaming activity there remains strong deep into this album cycle, rather than fading after the initial release week buzz. What this all points to, when you step back and look at the complete financial picture being built here, is an artist whose net worth trajectory is heading somewhere that very few people in this genre have ever actually reached. And the triple drop accelerated the timeline on that conversation in a way that nobody predicted. The pre-drop estimates of $300 to $400 million were already placing him among the wealthiest active musicians in the world. A triple album drop that simultaneously set Spotify single-day records, targets 3 consecutive spots on the Billboard 200, potentially delivers record number 15 for his chart history, launches a touring cycle that could rival or surpass the It's All a Blur numbers, and drives a global cultural response that generates hundreds of millions in earned media value. That's not a moment that leaves your financial trajectory in the same place it was before. That's the kind of moment that moves the needle in a way that gets verified by the numbers over the next 12 to 18 months. The billionaire conversation isn't just fan speculation anymore. It's a trajectory discussion grounded in actual milestone moments, and May 15th just became a date that gets pointed to in that conversation going forward. 3 albums, 1 night, records broken before the sun even came up the next morning, and a financial empire that was already operating at the highest level in the game now, with 3 new pillars stacked on top of it simultaneously. The music industry is still processing what actually just happened. They this hotmin in the full scope of what this triple drop means, commercially, culturally, financially, is going to keep revealing itself for a long time.
I know, it feels good to be home. It's my first time ever out here.
It's nice. Wow.
Ever since Drake dropped ICEMAN, a project built as a dedication to Honor and Habib, the numbers surrounding the rollout have been staggering. Between album sales, merchandise, music videos, and an anticipated ICEMAN tour, analysts are putting his projected earnings somewhere north of $100 million. And once those kinds of figures start circulating, people can't help but wonder what a rap mogul of Drake's caliber actually does with that level of wealth. A big piece of that answer sits right in his hometown. Drake planted his flag in Toronto years ago when he quietly acquired a sprawling estate back in 2015, a $7 million purchase at the time that most people barely blinked at. Fast forward to today and that same property has ballooned to an estimated $100 million valuation, completely unrecognizable after a series of extravagant renovations that turned it into something closer to a private resort than a home. He dubbed it the Embassy and the name fits. The whole vision behind the build out was simple: create an environment so complete that stepping outside becomes optional. A resort style pool, a hot tub, a cinema grade movie theater, everything was accounted for. Drake even documented the very first time he jumped into that enormous pool, making sure the moment didn't go unwitnessed.
Yes, sir. First swim of the summer and first time ever in the pool, actually, to be honest. This is my first time ever out here.
Given his deep-rooted passion for basketball, a full-size indoor court was a non-negotiable addition, somewhere he could pull up with friends and run games on a whim. But the court wasn't the only professional-grade space he carved out inside those walls. A fully equipped recording studio was built right into the property, meaning Drake can go from laying down tracks to shooting hoops without ever changing his zip code. The estate itself stretches across a staggering 50,000 square feet, and sitting at the heart of it is what Drake refers to as the Great Room, a space anchored by a jaw-dropping chandelier assembled from roughly 20,000 individual crystals that command attention the second you walk in. Spread throughout the home is an impressive signed jersey collection, and then there's the closet situation, which is a story on its own. His walk-in closet houses well over $1 million worth of clothing and accessories, and even that wasn't enough to contain everything. At a certain point, Drake acknowledged that his wardrobe had grown so out of hand that he had to convert a section of the basketball court into additional closet space. The Embassy isn't just a flex, and it's genuinely a reflection of who Drake is at his core. His connection to Toronto runs deeper than real estate though. He's been caught on camera making his way back to the city specifically to perform, proving the bond between him and his hometown is something money can't manufacture.
Good, how are you? You alright? Good to see you. Yo, that drive is long, man.
I know.
How are you?
I'm good, bro.
Huh?
I can't say I'm not good. I'm you.
I know, it feels good.
Of course, when your home becomes this well known to the public, privacy stops being a given and starts being something you have to actively pay for. Drake pours serious money into making sure himself and everyone around him stays protected at all times. The city of Toronto actually stepped in and granted him a rare exception, something they don't hand out lightly, allowing him to erect walls standing at 14 feet around the perimeter of the property. For context, that's literally double what the city legally permits for anyone else. Just getting those walls built ran Drake a cool $4 million in construction costs alone, and that's before you even factor in the additional $3 million he drops annually, keeping a full security operation running around the property year-round. But here's where things shift into a completely different tax bracket. There is one asset in Drake's portfolio that actually surpasses the value of the Embassy itself, and that's his private jet, a $200 million aircraft that he made entirely his own. The exterior was wrapped in a striking blue sky design with Air Drake printed boldly along the fuselage, and the OVO owl was placed on there to make absolutely sure there was no mistaking whose plane it was. Inside, the jet is broken up into multiple rooms, built for long-haul travel with family and close friends and ultimate comfort. Drake once took his followers along for a ride by filming inside the plane, and let's just say the interior square footage had a lot of people reconsidering what a home actually needs to look like.
What up? What's up?
I'm on a video.
Where's all the, did they bring the Air Drake stuff? Some boxes of like pack. I'm filming a music.
Oh, wow.
Whenever the mood strikes, all it takes is a single phone call and that jet is prepped and ready to go within 2 hours. I know, no airports, no lines, no waiting, just wheels up on demand. But what makes Drake's story genuinely compelling isn't just the scale of what he's accumulated, it's what he does with it beyond himself. Drake has made it a habit of reaching back and looking out for people who are struggling, and not in a performative way, There's a well-known moment where he tracked down a woman who had just come out the other side of a grueling medical battle and handed her $100,000 no strings attached purely because he could and because she deserved it. That kind of generosity isn't something you can fake, and it's a big reason why the conversation around Drake's legacy always ends up going beyond just the music and the mansions.
At the end of the night, and I hope my manager does it because I never really done this. I never done this so much, but I want you to cash this in at the end of the night, and we're gonna give you $100,000 from the community.
Then there were the two fans who showed up to one of his 2024 tour stops carrying a story that stopped Drake in his tracks. They had sold off their furniture, not some of it, all of it to you, just to scrape together enough money to be in that arena that night. When Drake caught wind of it, he didn't just feel for them, he did something about it. He sent them $50,000 on the spot, enough to not only replace everything they gave up, but probably upgrade the whole setup in the process. That's the thing about Drake that doesn't always make the headlines the way it should. For every massive purchase and over-the-top flex, there's a moment like this one sitting right next to it.
Right? My manager is my DJ, right? Is he over there? He's right here? You know what, my man, your furniture money, I'm gonna give you 50 bands tonight because I love you. Make sure you get some money tonight.
Of course, a portfolio like Drake's wouldn't be complete without a car collection to match, and he made sure to build one that turns heads at every level. But nothing in that garage stops conversation quite like his Bugatti Veyron, a $2 million machine that sits at the very top of the collection for good reason. What makes it truly untouchable isn't just the price tag, it's the rarity. Only 12 of these were ever built anywhere in the world, making Drake's ownership of one less of a purchase and more of a privilege. And the performance backs up the prestige. The Veyron holds the distinction of being the first production car in history to crack 250 miles per hour, a number that still sounds impossible when you say it out loud.
Hey, Drizzy. What's up, Drake? What's up, buddy? Thanks, man. I love you. I love you.
Drake has made it clear that exclusivity is the whole point, but if everyone can have it, he's probably not interested. That philosophy extends beyond the Bugatti, because Drake also went ahead and completed a full lineup of Rolls-Royce vehicles, capping it off by adding a Rolls-Royce Cullinan to the collection in a rare Chrome Hearts edition that takes an already elite vehicle and pushes it into a completely different category. But what makes the story even better is that Drake didn't keep that one to himself. He turned around and gifted a Chrome Hearts Rolls-Royce to streamer Ben the Don as a Christmas present, and because apparently when you're operating at Drake's level, that's just how you do the holidays.
Man, I got it. When my twin coming, twin gotta come train with me though.
Now, not everyone was on board with the Ben the Don gift. The internet had plenty to say about a millionaire receiving a Rolls Royce for Christmas when there are people out there with far greater needs. It's a fair conversation to have. But the full picture of how Drake moves with his money tells a more balanced story than that one moment suggests. Across the years, he's shown up for everyday people in ways that rarely get the same attention as the flashy gestures. One instance that stands out involved a fan who had just lost their mother and was carrying the weight of grief alongside the very real financial pressure that often follows it. Drake didn't send flowers, he paid off the remainder of their family's mortgage, eliminating a burden that no amount of condolences could have touched. That's a different kind of generosity entirely, and it's worth keeping in the conversation whenever his name comes up.
This is it? Oh, this is the outstanding ballots right here. It's a lot of money right here. But you know what? I'm gonna pay off your mama's house for you. That's 160 bands, but
beyond the cars and the real estate, Drake has a deep obsession with collectibles that taps into something more personal than just spending money. As a die-hard supporter of his hometown Toronto Raptors when they brought home the championship in 2019, Drake commissioned his own custom championship ring to commemorate the moment. And then on top of that, the Raptors organization went ahead and presented him with an official ring from the team itself. But Drake's appetite for significant pieces doesn't stop at sports. He's quietly assembled a collection of artifacts that read like a timeline of hip-hop history. At auction, he picked up Tupac Shakur's crown ring for $1 million, and followed that up by securing Tupac's face pendants for another $500,000. He then added a chain that once belonged to Frank Ocean, dropping $2 million to bring it home. Perhaps the boldest acquisition though came when Pharrell Williams found himself in a position where he needed to auction off his chain collection. Drake swept in and bought the entire lot for $2 million, then made sure nobody forgot about it, referencing the purchase in Family Matters by stating that anyone defending Pharrell should come retrieve his legacy from Drake's house first. It was a flex layered inside a diss, and it landed exactly the way he intended. Then there's the gold-wrapped OVO Air Jordan, Geek. Drake poured a couple $1 million worth of gold into a single shoe simply because he wanted to. They're completely unwearable, reportedly tipping the scales at around 100 pounds of solid gold, and as if that weren't enough, a close friend recently came through and gifted him a fully iced out chain blanketed in diamonds from edge to edge.
Oh, it's a gift somebody got me the other day. Speaking of great gifts, you got me a great gift. It's an ice ball.
And rounding out the collection is arguably the most conversation-starting piece of the bunch, a one-of-a-kind roulette watch that does exactly what you'd never expect a watch to do. Built into the side of it is a button that, when pressed, triggers a miniature roulette table on the face that actually spins, complete with a tiny ball that rolls around and lands on a number. It's the kind of piece that exists purely because someone had the vision to dream it up and the resources to make it real. And of course, Drake is the one wearing it on his wrist.
Nothing sweeter than a repeater. Know that. Neeks, what do you think? You think it's a repeat? 4. Nobody picked 4.
What went down on May 15th, 2026 was the kind of moment that only happens once in a generation, and even then, you'd be stretching it. Midnight hit, and Drake didn't drop an album, he dropped 3, all at the same time. ICEMAN, Habibti, and Maid of Honor landed simultaneously on every streaming platform on the planet, and the internet did not know what to do with itself. Timelines broke, group chats went insane, streaming servers were visibly struggling to keep up with the traffic. Music journalists who had been covering the industry for decades were typing things like, "I have never seen anything like this in real time." And for once, nobody was exaggerating. To really feel the weight of what this moment meant though, you have to rewind and look at everything Drake did to set the table before a single track was officially out. The ICEMAN rollout wasn't just a campaign, it was a cultural operation. It started building momentum throughout 2025 through a string of strategic moves that kept the internet locked in without ever fully satisfying the hunger. He dropped What Did I Miss in July 2025, a track that hit immediately and climbed to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, sitting in the cultural conversation for weeks without burning out. A dancehall collaboration called Which One followed, and that one went straight to the top of the rhythmic airplay chart. Doghouse came in September 2025 and found its own lane on the charts. Every single was placed deliberately, not to oversaturate but chikumu, but to keep the appetite building without ever crossing the line into overexposure. Drake fed the streets just enough each time to make sure everyone was still hungry when the main course came. Then in April 2026, the rollout went from interesting to legendary. His team dropped a towering block of ice in the middle of a downtown Toronto parking lot, a structure so massive and so out of place that it immediately drew crowds, drew news cameras, drew police, and eventually got shut down by the city for being a legitimate public safety concern. But before it could fully melt, a streamer named Kishka was digging through the ice alongside other fans when they found a hidden folder inside containing a magazine that confirmed May 15th as the release date. Drake's team reached out directly and handed Kishka $50,000 for the discovery. The clip went everywhere. His Instagram post confirming the date pulled over 3 million likes before the week was out. His courtside seats at Toronto Raptors games were replaced with actual blocks of ice as part of the visual language of the rollout. Reports came in of a massive explosion being staged somewhere in the city for a music video shoot. The whole thing was operating less like a standard album campaign and more like a citywide art installation that happened to be advertising music, and it landed exactly the way it was designed to. Nobody could look away, and the thing is, Drake was already breaking records before those 3 albums even arrived. In April 2026, tracking data showed him pulling 57.8 million streams in a single day on Spotify, the biggest solo rap performance of the entire year at that point. And all of that was purely off his existing catalog. Songs from across his entire discography were moving like they were brand new releases, driven entirely by the energy the rollout was generating. his monthly listener count on Spotify climbed to a new personal peak of 88.74 million, breaking his own prior record and putting the conversation around his streaming dominance back at the forefront of the music industry. That number doesn't happen by accident. That's what it looks like when an artist has built something durable enough that even their oldest records become relevant again every time they make a move. When the albums actually dropped, the records didn't stop. They kept stacking. Billboard confirmed that Drake set the 2026 Spotify record for most streamed artist, album, and song all in the same day, an achievement that essentially meant he broke the record 3 separate times before sunrise on May 16th. Now let's actually talk about what these 3 albums are, because they aren't just 3 versions of the same Drake record repackaged into different bundles. Each one was built as its own world with its own purpose and its own emotional frequency. ICEMAN is the statement. 18 tracks deep, it functions as Drake operating in full competitive mode, darker production, more aggressive energy, and lyrically it reads like a man who has kept receipts and finally decided to read them out loud in front of everyone. This is the version of Drake who has something to prove and wants it on the record permanently. The album carries the kind of controlled intensity that only comes from an artist who has been underestimated recently and is using that energy as fuel rather than letting it become a distraction. What Did I Miss finds its proper home at track 11 in the full project, and in context it hits differently than it did as a standalone single. It's no longer just a sharp song, it's a chapter within a larger argument that Drake is making about where he stands and why, and Maid of Honor operates in a completely different register. 14 tracks, built for energy, built for replay value, built for the moments when you just want music that makes you feel good without requiring anything heavy from you emotionally. Where ICEMAN is sharp and serious, Maid of Honor leans into the fun side of what Drake does. The internet savvy humor, the relationship energy, the tracks that generate reactions the morning after they drop because they're designed to be talked about and shared. Which one gets its full context here? And the rest of the project surrounds it with the same kind of self-aware, high-energy music that reminds you Drake has always been able to make records that don't need a message attached to them. They just need to be good, and they are. Habibti is arguably the one that the most devoted fans are going to be talking about the longest. 11 tracks, the shortest runtime of the 3, sitting around 36 minutes, but every minute is doing something intentional. This is the late night project, the one that sounds like empty highways and conversations you replay in your head afterward. The atmospheric, melodic, reflective side of Drake, the side that built the reputation that made the competitive side worth defending in the first place. It's emotionally layered in a way that creates a genuine contrast to ICEMAN's aggressive posture, and that contrast isn't accidental. It shows that even in the middle of the most ambitious rollout of his career, Drake can still slow down and make something that just feels real in a quiet way. Habibti is the project that proves none of the edge or the seriousness has come at the cost of the vulnerability that made people fall in love with his music in the first place. It's the reminder that underneath all of it, the jets and the mansion and the championship rings and the gold-wrapped shoes, there's still an artist who knows how to sit with the feeling and turn it into something that stays with you. The cultural impact of all 3 dropping simultaneously is something that even now is still being processed. What Drake essentially did was make it impossible for the culture to focus on anything else. By flooding the zone with 43 songs across 3 distinct creative identities at the exact same moment, he ensured that every conversation, every playlist, every review, every debate, every meme, every reaction video was going to be about him. There was no splitting the attention across competing releases that week. There was no other story. Hip-hop social media became one long, loud, multi-day conversation about which of the 3 albums was the best, what the best tracks were, what the features meant, what the lyrics said, and what the whole moment signaled about where Drake sits in the current landscape. And here's the thing, let all 3 camps form simultaneously. There were people who went all in on ICEMAN as the strongest rap performance of the era. There was a whole other group who said Maid of Honor was the most entertaining project front to back and that nothing else came close for pure enjoyment. And then there was a vocal segment that firmly believed Habibti was the one that would age the best, the one they'd still be revisiting 5 years from now. 3 debates, 3 different groups of people, all happening at the exact same time under the Drake umbrella. That doesn't happen with any other artist. That kind of range, that kind of ability to serve completely different emotional needs simultaneously is something that belongs to a very short list of musicians that history will actually remember. The cultural footprint extends beyond streaming numbers and chart positions too. The ICEMAN rollout reinvented what an album campaign could look like in 2026. The Ice Block activation in Toronto became a template that other teams were immediately watching and studying. The idea of hiding release information inside a real-world physical installation that fans had to physically interact with to uncover. That was a level of creative marketing that blurred the line between fan experience and performance art. The moment Kishka found that folder and the clip spread globally, every brand strategist and every label marketing team on the planet pulled up the footage to understand what had just been done and how. Drake essentially made the rollout itself a piece of the culture, not just the advertising arm of it. People were watching the ice melt in real time. People were making content about the Ice Block. The Ice Block had its own news cycle before a single song from the album had been heard by anyone. That's not something a budget buys you. That's what happens when the artist's cultural standing is so firmly established that everything they touch automatically becomes an event. The Toronto dimension of all of this matters more than people give it credit for too. Drake didn't just come out of Toronto, he fundamentally changed what Toronto means on a global stage. Before him, the city existed as a significant but secondary market in the North American music conversation. After him, Toronto carries a cultural identity that extends globally, and that identity runs through OVO, through the Raptors, through the accent that people now recognize, through the aesthetic that OVO sound established as a real and distinct sound within the larger hip-hop world. The Embassy sits in that city not just as a home, but as a symbol of what Drake represents to Toronto specifically. Proof that the ceiling he believed didn't exist turned out to actually not exist. When Kishka dug through that ice in a Toronto parking lot and found a release date inside, it was a Toronto fan finding it in Toronto for an album cycle that was framed almost entirely around Drake's relationship with his home city. That thread runs unbroken through everything he does, and it's a big reason why the cultural impact of this era lands on a deeper level than just chart performance. And then there's the financial picture that sits underneath all of it, because these three albums didn't just reshape the cultural conversation, they reshaped Drake's trajectory towards something that a year ago still felt like a projection rather than a certainty. Entering this rollout, Drake's net worth was sitting at an estimated $400 million according to reports from early 2026, which itself represented a significant climb from the $250 to $300 million range that had been cited in 2025. His business portfolio was already sprawling well beyond music. OVO Sound as a functioning label and brand, a restaurant investment in Dave's Hot Chicken that turned out to be enormously profitable as the chain expanded, and a media and content presence that extends his brand into spaces that traditional music revenue doesn't cover. His record deal, signed in 2022, was reported to be worth in the region of $400 million and encompass publishing, catalog rights, and merchandise, meaning the infrastructure around his music was already generating wealth independent of whatever new material he put out. But the triple album drop accelerates everything about that math in a way that's genuinely difficult to overstate. When you factor in what 3 simultaneous albums generate in first week streaming revenue alone, and these aren't just albums, they're Spotify record-setting albums, the number is significant on its own. Layer on top of that the merchandise operation that launched alongside the release, the music video revenue that will build throughout the year as visuals roll out, the sync licensing opportunities that 43 new songs create, and the inevitable effect that a moment this large has on the streaming performance of an artist's entire back catalog, and the revenue picture coming out of this single rollout becomes enormous. ICEMAN alone, if it hits the top spot on the Billboard 200, gives Drake his 15th #1 album, a number that breaks the rap record outright and puts him in company with some of the biggest names in the history of recorded music, regardless of genre. The possibility that all 3 projects could debut simultaneously in the top 3 of the chart was being discussed before release, a scenario that would have no real historical precedent in the modern era. And Billboard had already confirmed just 2 days before the drop that Drake became the first artist in history to have 3 albums charting on the Billboard 200 for 10 years, a baseline milestone that makes everything that came after it feel earned rather than handed. When you put all of the pieces together, the streaming dominance, the 3-album commercial performance, the tour revenue that will follow this cycle, the OVO brand equity, the business investments, the publishing catalog, and the cultural real estate that no amount of money can actually purchase, but that translates into financial leverage in every negotiation Drake will ever have. The billion-dollar conversation stops being speculative and starts being a matter of timing. The runway to that number is clearer right now than it has ever been, and it's built on a foundation that goes far deeper than one album cycle. It's built on years of staying relevant in a genre and an industry that eats artists alive the moment they show any sign of slowing down. Drake didn't slow down, he waited, watched, stacked, and then came back with 43 songs in one night and reminded the entire world exactly who he is and exactly what he's capable of when he decides it's time to make a statement. Drake came out of nowhere on May 15th, 2026 and reminded everybody exactly who he is. 3 albums in a single night: ICEMAN, Habibi, and Maid of Honor. 43 tracks, no rollout, no warning, just dropped and walked away. That's not a musician releasing music. That's a man with something to prove, unloading everything he's been holding since 2024. And what's wild is Drake didn't just make music. He made a statement. Every bar had a target, every song had a purpose. He sat down and thought about every single person who moved wrong, and then he went to the studio and handled it one by one. Rick Ross, DJ Khaled, LeBron, A$AP Rocky, J. Cole, Jay-Z, Kendrick Lamar, DeMar DeRozan, all of them got a line, a verse, or a whole track dedicated to whatever they did. That's the thing about Drake that people keep underestimating. He doesn't forget. He doesn't let things slide and move on quietly. He archives everything and waits for the right moment. That moment was May 15th, 2026. 43 songs of receipts delivered all at once with zero room for a response. Some of these people clapped back, some of them went completely silent, and Drake just kept moving. This is the full breakdown of what he said, who he said it about, and what happened next. Let's get into it. Bro, let me set the scene for real. May 15th, 2026, Toronto's going crazy. Drake's got a whole live stream event running in his own city, fireworks popping off outside, everyone locked in thinking this is just some behind the scenes content or maybe a visual shoot. Nobody had a single clue what was actually being loaded up on the other side of that stream. It wraps up, and then out of absolutely nowhere, 3 full projects slam onto every streaming platform at the same exact time. ICEMAN, Habibi, Maid of Honor, 43 songs, no singles, no features teased, no warning of any kind, just Drake dumping the whole thing on the culture at once like he'd been planning this moment for a long time, because he had. The timeline went insane immediately, not even an hour in, and people were already pulling lyrics apart line by line, hunting for names, and they didn't have to look hard because Drake wasn't being subtle about any of it. This wasn't some coded message situation. This was Drake with a list, a pen, and 2 years worth of stored energy finally finding an exit. Since 2024 he'd been watched the Kendrick situation play out the way it did, watched people he put on, worked with, traveled with, and made hits with quietly distance themselves or flat out switch sides. And instead of going off in the moment, Drake just clocked everything and kept it moving. That's the scariest version of Drake. The one that's patient, because when he finally came back, it wasn't a single, it wasn't a response track. It was 43 songs of receipts dropped at midnight with no warning. That's not someone who's rattled, that's someone who's been ready. Now, to understand why Drake came at Rick Ross the way he did, you gotta actually respect the history first. These two were locked in for over a decade. Real collaborations, real records, consistent chemistry between Toronto and Miami that produced some genuine moments in a rap. Ross and Drake weren't just features for each other, they had a genuine working relationship that ran deep. Then Not Like Us came out and the whole rap world had to plant a flag. Ross didn't just quietly lean the other way, he went all in on the other side. Dropped a full diss aimed directly at Drake, got loud on every platform he could find, and made it clear exactly where he stood. Drake didn't say a word, he just remembered. Fast forward to Maid of Honor, and Drake finally handed Ross his invoice. The bar people couldn't stop talking about was Drake saying he was out here pushing Ross's streams before Adam Ross had ever even touched a keyboard. That line is doing 2 things at once. Drake's telling the world he was personally responsible for keeping Ross relevant in the streaming era, that he was the one activating fan bases and moving numbers behind the scenes, and then he puts internet streamer Adam Ross in the same breath to make it quotable and make it sting at the same time. He's basically saying Ross went from being carried by Drake to being in the same tier as a random Twitch guy. That's ice cold. Ross didn't sit on it. Same day, he's on Instagram live scrolling through fan comments calling Drake washed, saying the 3 projects were mid and the moment had passed. Then he went a step further and put Drake's album title right next to his own upcoming project title, Set in Stone, dropping June 12th. And let the comparison speak for itself. Ice melts, stone doesn't. That's not a clapback, that's a whole marketing strategy. He also called out Rory Farrell and Jamil Clay by name, saying the podcast world around Drake is basically just a shield designed to keep real criticism from ever landing. And on top of all that, Ross had already gone on Hot 97 with Nessa Diab before any of this dropped and said publicly that nobody in the industry was losing sleep over whatever Drake was about to put out. He had his posture set before the albums even hit. Drake dropped anyway. Ross responded, same news cycle. This thing has a full album behind it and a whole summer ahead of it. It is nowhere near done. The DJ Khaled situation is a different kind of pain though. What Drake felt from Khaled wasn't about any kind of direct move against him. Guy, it was about absence. They had real history, real records together, a genuine rapport that stretched back years. But when the 2024 beef was the loudest thing happening in rap, when every single person in the industry was being forced to show where they stood, Khaled essentially vanished. No statement, no post, nothing that put Drake's name in his corner. He just went quiet and let the whole thing pass him by. Drake hit him on the album for exactly that. Called him out directly for choosing neutrality at the worst possible time, and framed it as Khaled using faith as cover to avoid having to pick a side when it actually meant something. Drake's point wasn't subtle. He's saying Khaled will show up for certain conversations all day long but goes ghost. The second showing up requires something real. That's not just a diss, that's a character assessment. And right now Khaled hasn't said a single word publicly. No response, no post, complete silence, which at this point is its own kind of answer. The fact that Khaled went quiet says everything on its own, because that man does not move quietly under normal circumstances. The silence is the response. Now the LeBron situation genuinely threw people because these two had a visible friendship for years. Same circles, same events, OVO Fest appearances, the whole Toronto and LA overlap working in a way that looked genuine. So when Drake got on Make Them Remember and took a shot at LeBron for spending his whole career switching teams, whenever things got uncomfortable, the timeline absolutely lost it. And Drake wasn't satisfied with just one bar. He came back with another one connecting LeBron's jersey number to a DNA testing company and using that to call LeBron's authenticity into question entirely, saying the switching isn't just a basketball pattern, it's who he actually is as a person. Then on National Treasures, Drake went even more specific and brought up the Toronto basketball chapter directly. He pointed at the Raptors era, the broken championship promise, LeBron playing in that city, and then just leaving. That one landed differently for Toronto fans because it wasn't abstract. It was a real wound that Drake was putting words to. LeBron has said absolutely nothing publicly, which honestly tracks because he doesn't really engage with that type of thing. But when Drake is out here this loud and all you get back is silence, people notice that too. The ASAP Rocky chapter has been building underneath the surface for years, and everybody already knows why. Drake and Rihanna had history together that went on for a long time. Then Rocky and Rihanna built something real, a relationship, a family, kids, a whole life. And the internet never stopped asking out loud what Drake thought about the man who ended up with someone he clearly had deep feelings for. Drake addressed that directly on Burning Bridges. He pointed out that Rihanna hadn't even posted Rocky's recent music on her own social media, which in celebrity relationship terms is actually a meaningful detail. When your own partner doesn't publicly support your work, that's a crack. And Drake found it to him and put a flashlight on it for the whole world to see. That alone would have kept social media occupied for days, but Drake kept going. On Firm Friends, he went completely scorched earth and delivered one of the most talked about moments on the entire project. I'm spelling out a direct explicit insult with Rocky's name literally embedded in it, letter by letter. No subtext, no ambiguity, no decoding required. Drake made it permanent and unmistakable on purpose. He wanted it documented. Rocky hasn't formally addressed any of it yet. He's been focused on his own music and his family, but with Drake going this public and this direct, something eventually has to break the silence. J. Cole is one of the most respected names in the genre. That part has never been in question. But 2024 did real damage to how a lot of people view him. When the Kendrick and Drake situation was at its absolute loudest, Cole entered the conversation with a response record that genuinely got people fired up. Then he pulled it back, he stepped away from the whole situation, walked it back publicly, and ended up on a festival stage talking about unity and peace, while Kendrick was still actively in combat mode. The culture called it what it was, and that moment stuck to Cole's name ever since. Drake referenced it across multiple projects. On Make Them Pay, he drew the contrast flat out, pointing out that unlike the married rapper who chose to exit, he stayed in the fight and kept engaging. The married rapper line is Cole. The name doesn't need to be said. He also took aim at the Big Three concept itself, calling the whole idea overcrowded and messy from the jump. But the bar that cut the deepest was Drake saying he stood his ground and took on whatever was coming, because walking away was never an option he was willing to consider. That's a direct, intentional comparison of character. Cole had every credential imaginable and still chose to leave the battlefield. Drake chose to stay on it. He wants that contrast to be the thing you remember. Cole hasn't responded yet, but that means nothing with him. Cole processes everything through his pen, and when he's ready, whatever comes out will be deliberate. If a response is loading, it won't be fast and it won't be sloppy. Now let me talk about what this moment actually means for Drake financially, commercially, and culturally, because the numbers behind this triple album drop are genuinely wild, and people are still processing the full weight of what just happened. Let's start with the money, because that's where the story really starts to reveal itself. As of early 2026, Drake's net worth was sitting at around $400 million. That's before ICEMAN, Habibti, and Maid of Honor hit streaming platforms. That's before the first week numbers started rolling in. That's before the algorithms on every major DSP got completely swallowed up by 43 new tracks all arriving at the same time. And when you understand how the streaming economy works, how royalties stack, how playlist placements compound, how a high volume drop across multiple projects multiplies revenue streams in a way that a single album release never could, you start to understand that what Drake just did wasn't just a creative statement, it was a financial play, a calculated, structured move toward a number that the culture has been watching him approach for years, the $1 billion mark. He's not there yet officially, but this drop puts that conversation back on the table in a real way, and nobody in rap right now is closer to it than him. Think about the mechanics of what 3 simultaneous albums does to your streaming income. You don't just get the revenue from one project hitting, you get it from 3. 43 tracks all pulling streams at the same time from the same fan base. Every time someone plays an ICEMAN track and then the algorithm slides them into Habibti, that's 2 separate revenue streams activating from one listener in one session. Maid of Honor catches a whole different demographic, not the love, vibes, and turn-up crowd, and that project runs a parallel to the other 2 without cannibalizing either. Drake structured this release in a way that maximized the financial ceiling. It wasn't 3 albums for the sake of it. Each project was built differently and aimed at different people within his fanbase, which means the ceiling for total streams across all 3 bodies of work is significantly higher than if he had dropped everything on one project. That's not just an artist thinking creatively, that's an artist thinking like a business. The first week, projections made it even clearer. Industry analysts looked at the numbers coming in and started forecasting somewhere between 705,000 and 785,000 total album equivalent units across all 3 projects in the first tracking week alone. To put that in perspective, that quote for All the Dogs in 2023 debuted at 402,000 units, and that was considered a massive number. Drake is potentially doing nearly double that, just from streaming and purchases across 3 bodies of work dropping simultaneously. ICEMAN is leading the charge, projected to pull somewhere between 480,000 and 520,000 units on its own, which would already be a massive first week number for any single album in the current streaming climate. Maid of Honor is projected around 115,000 to 135,000 units. Habibti is expected to land between 110,000 and 130,000. Each one of those numbers individually would be considered a strong debut for most artists. The fact that all 3 are hitting at once under the same name is just a different level of commercial performance, and the Billboard implications of this are historic in a way that actually changes the record books. According to Billboard, if any of the 3 albums debuts at number 1, Drake would earn his 15th number 1 album, which would make him the rapper with the most chart-topping albums in history, outright. That record has never been held by one rapper alone at this level. Beyond that, chart analysts were tracking the very real possibility of Drake occupying the top 3 spots on the Billboard 200 simultaneously, meaning ICEMAN at number 1, Maid of Honor at number 2, Habibti at number 3. The only artist who has ever held all 3 top positions on that chart at the same time was Michael Jackson, and even Jackson didn't do it with 3 different projects all debuting in the same week. Drake would be the first in history to accomplish that exact version of the feat. That's not just a chart achievement, that's cultural dominance measured in data. What's wild is that this is happening on top of an already insane catalog performance. In the weeks before the triple drop, Drake was already sitting with 9 albums on the Billboard 200 at the same time, 9 projects spread across the chart simultaneously. Take Care, Views, Scorpion, Certified Lover Boy, For All the Dogs, More Life, Thank Me Later, Nothing Was the Same, and the collab project with Party Next Door. Most artists never get a single project to hold a spot on the Billboard 200 for a full year. Drake has multiple albums that have been on that chart for a decade. Take Care has been charting for 687 weeks. That's over 13 years on the chart without stopping. Nothing Was the Same and Views both crossed the 520 week mark, 10 full years each simultaneously, just days before the ICEMAN drop. He became the first artist in history to have 3 separate albums each spend a decade on the Billboard 200, surpassing Michael Jackson to reach that milestone. And then, before anyone had fully processed that achievement, he dropped 3 more albums on top of everything already charting. That's when you realize Drake isn't just participating in the music industry right now. He's restructuring it around himself every time he moves. ICEMAN as a project is his 9th studio album and the one that carries the most weight narratively and sonically. The rollout for ICEMAN alone was something the culture hadn't seen before. Drake started building toward it as far back as mid-2025, kicking off a YouTube livestream series called ICEMAN Episode 1, where he previewed tracks and gave fans a window into the process. He dropped What Did I Miss as the first single off the project, and that song alone debuted at number 2 on the Hot 100. He followed that up with a second livestream episode, then a third, building anticipation track by track, teaser by teaser, until the 4th and final episode, which is what ultimately preceded the full release night on May 15th. The build-up for this album was unlike anything in recent memory because Drake treated every single moment of the rollout as content, as something the culture could participate in and react to in real time. The physical marketing for ICEMAN is also something that will be talked about for years. Drake erected a massive ice block structure in downtown Toronto, a physical installation made of thousands of blocks of ice, which ended up being taken down by the city's fire department because it was considered a public hazard. Before it came down though, a streamer named Kishka found a hidden folder embedded inside the installation that revealed the album's actual release date of May 15th. Drake's team rewarded him $50,000 for the discovery. He converted his courtside seats at Toronto Raptors games into frozen icicle displays. The entire city was treated as a canvas for the campaign. Major brands including Chipotle, Coors Light, the Chiquita, and the New York Giants all ran parody takes on the ICE campaign, which is free marketing amplification that money genuinely cannot buy. When a brand like Chipotle is riffing on your album rollout, you've reached a level of cultural penetration that goes beyond music, and that's what ICEMAN as a body of work represents beyond the numbers and the chart positions and the streaming projections. It represents Drake reasserting himself at the center of the culture. He is the most streamed artist in Spotify history. That title isn't a projection or an estimate, it's a verified fact. He holds more records on that platform than anyone who has ever put music on it. His tour, Some Sexy Shows, sold over 6.2 million tickets worldwide, a number that puts him in the territory of artists who transcend rap entirely and operate in the same commercial atmosphere as the biggest names in any genre of music. He had already been announced as the host of Toronto's 2026 World Cup matches before ICEMAN even dropped, which tells you everything about where his public profile sits. This isn't a niche artist having a good week. This is the biggest commercial artist in rap making, what might be the most strategically calculated move of his entire career. With 3 albums and 43 tracks now in the market simultaneously, the streaming income from this drop alone over the course of the weeks, months, and years ahead is going to be substantial. Streaming royalties compound over time. A catalog track that gets added to a playlist or ends up in a viral moment on social media or gets synced to a TV spot can generate royalties for years after the initial release week buzz fades. Drake now has 43 new songs that can generate those kinds of downstream returns on top of the already enormous catalog he's been building since 2009. Add in his business investments, his OVO brand, his touring revenue, and the broader commercial ecosystem he's built around his name, and the picture of where his net worth is headed over the next few years becomes pretty clear. The gap between $400 million and the $1 billion mark is a meaningful distance, but this drop narrows that gap in a way that no single album release could have. The cultural weight of Habibti is also worth sitting with separately for a moment because it represents a side of Drake that gets underappreciated in all the conversation about beefs and diss tracks and history. Habibti is 11 tracks of Drake doing exactly what he's done better than almost anyone for the better part of 2 decades. Melody-driven, late-night, intimate music that connects on a personal level. The title itself, which translates roughly to my love or my darling in Arabic, tells you where the emotional register of that project lives. It's not aggressive, it's not adversarial, it's the version of Drake that made Take Care one of the most beloved albums in the genre's history. And the fact that he dropped it alongside ICEMAN and Maid of Honor means that on the same night he was addressing his critics, settling scores and making historic chart moves, he was also giving his genuine core fan base a body of work that sounds nothing like a defensive artist trying to prove a point. That's command of range. That's an artist who knows himself well enough to do multiple things at once and make all of them land. Maid of Honor plays in a different lane still. That 14-track project leans into a more vibrant, celebratory energy. The kind of music that fills clubs and house parties and long road trips with the windows down. It's the version of Drake that lives in the moment. Songs like Ho Phase and Cheetah Print aren't trying to be culturally heavy, they're trying to be fun, and in a moment where the whole conversation around Drake has been serious and contentious for 2 years straight, there's something genuinely strategic about dropping a project that just wants to make people move. The culture needed a Drake that reminded them why they fell in love with his music in the first place, outside of all the noise, and Maid of Honor is exactly that. What this triple drop really does is demonstrate what separates Drake from everyone else operating in this space right now in terms of commercial capability. He is the most streamed artist in the history of the platform most people use to listen to music. He has 3 albums that have each individually spent a decade on the Billboard 200, a feat nobody else has ever achieved. He's projecting to potentially hold all 3 top spots on the chart simultaneously, another feat nobody has done with brand new album debuts. He has 14 chart-topping albums already in his catalog. His last tour sold over 6 million tickets. His net worth was estimated at $400 million before this drop, with a world tour expected to follow. Every one of those numbers individually would define a successful career. Drake has all of them simultaneously building off each other at age 39 in the middle of one of the most commercially ambitious weeks of music any artist has ever pulled off. The trajectory toward that billion-dollar mark is real. It's not guaranteed on any specific timeline, but this drop accelerated the conversation in a way that nobody can dismiss. The streaming income alone from 43 new songs landing simultaneously on every platform, flooding playlists, dominating algorithms, and generating first-week numbers that could push collectively toward 750,000 units. That adds meaningful money to an operation that was already pulling in generational revenue before a single note of ICEMAN played publicly. And when the tour follows, which it almost certainly will because Drake headlined Wireless Festival in London for 3 consecutive nights in 2025 to over 1 million people across the run, the live revenue layer gets added on top of everything that's already flowing in from the streaming side. Drake was already in that rare category of artists who can legitimately change the music industry's numbers on a week where he releases something. He just changed those numbers for 3 projects at once. The money is following the art directly, and the art just hit the market in a way that has never been done before in the history of recorded music. Whether the critics love it or not, whether the culture fully forgives the 2024 chapter or not, the financial reality of what Drake just executed on May 15th, 2026 is undeniable. He dropped 43 songs, flooded every platform, broke records that have stood since Michael Jackson, and pushed himself significantly closer to becoming hip-hop's next billionaire. That's the move, and the summer hasn't even started yet. So check it. Before X passed away, there was apparently this post he threw up on Instagram where he was basically saying if anything goes down, then Drake has something to do with it. What makes it even crazier is that an attorney at X's court case straight up pointed the finger at Drake as being behind it all.
And do you think that for one moment, here today, days after the event, 2 masked men, right? He came on social media and said, guys, if anybody is Drake, do you think in that time span that they went and they addressed him, they talked to him? No. Do you think sitting here today, years later, any detective has ever asked, Drake or anybody like that? No. They never did that. So you ask yourself, how could that be? And you say, hey, it's so-and-so, you better believe so-and-so is going to get investigated. But in this case, they didn't do it. They didn't do it because it didn't comport with their version and their narrative.
And as law enforcement, I think that they have the obligation to do so.
Now here's what really went down. June 18th, 2018 started off with X sliding into his BMW i8 and heading over to Riva Motorsports, this huge spot that sells motorcycles, boats, and all kinds of off-road rides. X spotted a bike he was feeling, and that's when a manager mentioned they cut deals if you pay cash. So X bounced from the store and hit up his mom on the phone. Evidence from the trial showed this. He told her he was about to grab a new motorcycle. His mom said to go scoop his uncle first so someone could bring the i8 back to the house. After grabbing his uncle, the two of them rolled to Bank of America to pull out the cash for the bike. Security cameras even caught X walking through the bank doors.
During your encounter with Mr. Oswald during this time, what was his demeanor like? Fun. Anything that.
That same teller ended up testifying at X's trial, telling the jury he tried getting $250,000 in cash, but she had to turn him down. Bank policy only lets you walk out with 50 grand unless you put in a special order ahead of time. She gave him the $50,000 right there and arranged for him to pick up the rest another day. What X didn't know was that Michael Boatwright, Dedrick Williams, Trayvon Newsom, and Robert Allen had posted up in that parking lot, eyeing his i8. Robert Allen, who ended up snitching during the case, said they were already out hunting for a lick that day when X's whip pulled up right next to them. Pure chance. Once they peeped whose car it was, they started following. X and his uncle headed back to Riva Motorsports, and these dudes had two things on their mind. Get that diamond chain and whatever was inside that Louis Vuitton bag he walked into the bank with. When X got back to Riva, the four suspects parked their van on the other side of the street. Two of them followed X inside to keep tabs on him, while the other two stayed with the vehicles, making sure X's ride didn't disappear. The two who went inside even bought the ski masks and gloves they'd use for the robbery right there in the same store as X. Security footage shows them walking in, and you can see X lock eyes with one of them on camera. X kept browsing motorcycles with his uncle, but since he couldn't get all the money he needed that day, he ended up not buying anything. That meant every dollar in that Louis V bag was still sitting there, and these robbers would later be flexing with it on Instagram, but we'll get to that. This mistake cost X his life. When he got back to his BMW, he sat there for about 7 minutes. Court records show he was scrolling through Instagram and Twitter on his phone. Those 7 minutes gave the other two robbers enough time to leave the store, run to the van, and get ready. When X finally pulled out his parking spot and headed toward the one-way exit, a minivan cut him off, completely blocking his path. Two masked men jumped out, one on each side of his car, both strapped, yelling at him to roll down the windows and give up the bag. X wasn't giving up that Louis Vuitton bag. The robbers were heated at this point. His uncle, sitting in the passenger seat, threw his door open and took off running straight back into Riva, leaving X completely alone with a wide open entrance to the car. A struggle broke out through X's window while the other robber circled around to that open passenger door, and that's where he shot X. The two grabbed the Louis V stuffed with cash and jumped back in their ride. During the trial, prosecutors laid out who did what. Dedrick Williams was behind the wheel and blocked X's car, while Michael Boatwright and Trayvon Newsom threw on the ski masks and brought the guns. X's uncle bolted, they closed in on X, and Boatwright pulled the trigger. This is where things got real clear though. Robert Allen, one of the four guys involved, cut a deal with prosecutors and testified against his co-defendants. That's how we found out exactly how they divided up that 50 grand, complete with photos of them showing off the money on social. Michael Boatwright, Dedrick, and Trayvon each pocketed $15,000, which left Robert with just $5,000. Pretty wild that the dude who got the smallest cut ended up being the one who flipped. DJ Academics reported that X's final words were asking what this was even for, which makes the whole situation hit even harder. X was completely confused about what was happening to him. Everything went down in seconds. People nearby at the scene were pulling out their phones, snapping pictures, and throwing everything online. Word about X's death traveled through social media like wildfire. Rappers started posting tributes and sharing memories they had with him. Juice WRLD, who talked with X multiple times before, spoke out about what the rapper meant to him.
We had a couple deep conversations, talked on the phone a few times. He had nothing but positive stuff to say. For real. We had respect for each other at the end of the day. And that's what was gonna kind of lead into a friendship. He just said, make sure keep all negative people out of your life. And just make sure that you have good energy around you.
He also went on a radio show where he opened up about how he made his track Legends, which was his way of paying respect to X after his passing.
We had a couple like deep conversations, talked on the phone a few times. He had nothing but positive stuff to say. For real. We had respect for each other at the end of the day. And that's what was gonna kind of lead into a friendship. He just said, make sure it's keep all negative people out of your life. And just make sure that you have good energy around you.
X left such a powerful mark on music that even in 2024, major figures like 50 Cent were saying he would have dominated the entire rap game if his life hadn't been cut short.
We had a couple like deep conversations, talked on the phone a few times. He had nothing but positive stuff to say. For real. We had respect for each other at the end of the day. And that's what was gonna kind of lead into a friendship. He just said, make sure it's keep all negative people out of your life. And just make sure that you have good energy around you.
Ski Mask the Slump God also spoke about growing up with X and opened up about the impact he had on his life.
I met X in juvenile jail. Both was in juvenile jail spending time. Then we just was like, yeah, we need an outlet to just stop getting in trouble. All we like to do is hit licks and like do hood friends. Long story short, so it's just like, all right, we need to find something to do. So we was like in there just beating on the tables, because all you can really do is sit there and stare at each other. So we sitting there beating on the chairs and stuff, and then we just like figured out each other could rap, and then we just like help.
X's story really shows how quick everything can change in this world. 1 minute you're out living your life, making moves, planning to buy a motorcycle, and the next minute it's all over. The way everything unfolded that day at Riva Motorsports still hits different when you really think about it. 4 dudes just sitting in a parking lot waiting for any opportunity, and X's I-8 pulls up right next to them. That's all it took. Pure timing, wrong place, wrong moment, and a young artist with his whole future ahead of him loses everything. The trial brought out so many details that people didn't know about before. Watching the security footage, hearing the testimonies, seeing how everything was planned out step by step. These weren't some masterminds pulling off a calculated heist. They were scrambling, buying ski masks and gloves in the same store as their target. They followed him around, waited for their chance, and took it. The fact that his uncle bailed out the car, leaving him alone, still sparks debates. Some people understand the survival instinct, others can't wrap their head around it. Either way, X ended up by himself in that final moment. What really messes with people's heads is thinking about what could have been. X was only scratching the surface of his potential. His music was already connecting with millions, breaking streaming records, influencing a whole generation of artists. He was evolving too, experimenting with different sounds, showing growth as a person. When someone like 50 Cent says he would have been the biggest in the game, that means something. That's not just empty talk, that's a legend recognizing another one. The court case dragged on for years, keeping his name in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. Dedrick Williams, Michael Boatwright, and Trayvon Newsom all got their sentences, but that doesn't bring anyone back. Robert Allen took his plea deal, testified against his own crew for a lighter sentence. The whole thing exposed how quickly loyalty disappears when prison time enters the conversation. The dude who got paid the least ended up being the first to flip. $5,000 versus potentially life behind bars makes that decision pretty clear for most people. X's influence didn't stop after June 18th though. His streaming numbers kept climbing, his music kept reaching new fans who never got to experience him while he was here. Songs like Sad and Moonlight became even bigger after his passing. Juice WRLD made Legends as a tribute, keeping both X and Lil Peep's memories alive through music. That's the power of art, it outlives the artist. That Ski Mask the Slump God still carries that connection they built from the ground up, representing for his brother whenever he can. The whole situation with Drake hanging over everything adds another layer that never got fully answered. X putting that message out on Instagram before his death, then a lawyer mentioning Drake's name during trial testimony. Those dots never got connected officially, but the internet never forgets. People still debate it, still wonder if there's more to the story than what came out in court.